talking about 9/11 because it is 9/11. That's right. It's the 9th of November, the day that everything changed. And if you want to give me a call, the number is in the description. Give me a ring. We'll talk about anything you want. But mainly, I want to ask people what they remember about 18 years ago, where they were, what their first impressions were when this news was coming in, and how that changed over the weeks and months and 18 years since they brought down the Twin Towers and, of course, launched an attack on the Pentagon as well. So 18 years ago, I was starting college. We're in for a long haul tonight, by the way, so get your snacks ready, get the crisps out. Let me know in the comments what type of crisps you're snacking on this evening, and we'll go down memory lane. So 9/11, Joe, I think it was my first day of college, and getting the bus home, the very old man who was the bus driver said to us as we got on the coach, "Have you heard what they've done in America? They've smashed planes into the Twin Towers." In fact, he might have even said, the Empire State Building. We've got comments already. Arsenal is the best is saying, "Hello, Lessons for Life. What the book you're holding before you started this live stream, and is this book a good read?" Well, yes, and I was careful to hold it up the wrong way because, of course, George W., when he heard the news for the first time about what was happening on 9/11, he was reading a book and he was holding it upside down. He was holding My Pet Goat and looked... he did look surprised. We'll come on to all the conspiracy theories. Saj Gotti's saying cut to the chase, but you don't down a lovely red wine. You have to sip it. So we're going to get there gradually, and we'll talk about what really happened, what didn't really happen, all the disinformation and information that floats around regarding this story. And Rod is already saying, no planes. Really, Rod? Really? What did we see flying into the buildings then? If it wasn't the planes. This particular book is by Ian Henshall, and it's called 9/11: The New Evidence, but it's actually it came out about 5 or 6 years ago. So there are probably more updates since then. Another cracking read is Alice in Wonderland and the World Trade Center Disaster. That is, of course, by David Icke. Because the official line, the official story, is nothing but a fairy tale. And if you believe that 19 Arab men, mainly from Saudi Arabia, armed with box cutters, and we go to the calls. Pause it there. We've got a caller on line one. Good evening, sir. Welcome, or madam, to the show.
Good evening, sir. Welcome, or madam, to the show. Good evening, sir.
You're going to have to turn down your radio, otherwise we're going to hear you.
Okay, hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
What do you remember about 9/11? And what's your take on it?
George Bush, and I'm sick of getting blamed for 9/11.
Where are you calling from, Mr. Bush?
Washington, D.C.
Okay. And why do you get blamed for 9/11?
Because of me reading a book upside down. I mean, are you kidding me?
Mr. Bush, do you think people are giving you too much credit?
Al-Qaeda, just like the official wink wink story says.
So the official story... but George Bush people are saying that you've lost your accent.
I'm still Texan.
So it's as simple as that, is it? 19 men from Saudi Arabia hijacked planes crashed them
Well, you
into.
saw the passport fall out the building, didn't you?
Yeah, it's amazing what can survive a plane crash and what can't. It seems that passports and copies of the Quran seem to miraculously survive, but incriminating evidence doesn't.
Yeah, but I'm sick of these conspiracy theorists like Saj Gotti and Giuliano Moro calling me out on YouTube and Facebook. Give me a break, you know? Like I got time to do that. I got buildings to blow. I mean, buildings to look at.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, we'll get to it. Mr. Bush, thank you.
What's with that flag behind your head?
Yeah. Well, Mr. Bush, thank you for getting in touch with us. Must have been a long distance call.
Well, no, I've got time.
You've got time. All right. Look, we got other people that wants to get involved. Carol wants to give me a ring. If you want to call me, the number is on the screen, or rather, it's in the description of this video. It's not my number. It's the number of the chat. The number in the description. So that was George Bush there saying that he gets blamed for 9/11. I don't blame George Bush for 9/11. George Bush is not intelligent enough to get involved or be in on 9/11. Carol Kellner is in the US. The dialing code is 0044. Then drop the 0, and that will be the number. If you add the number via WhatsApp, you'll be able to get involved. It'd be good to get a call from America on this subject. But no, I don't buy this idea that George W. Bush was in on 9/11. I don't think it was an inside job as such, but it might be an outside job. More on that later. So, my memories of 9/11, I know this is like Donald Trump, he tends to make everything about him, which is quite a tragic trait in a person. But this is a personal thing for everybody, and when it's such a historic moment in time, you do remember where you were on these days. And the older generation, it was, where were you when Kennedy was shot? For people born in the 80s and 90s, it is, where were you on 9/11? And hard to believe, if you were born on 9/11, if that was your birthday, then you are 18 years old today, and a very happy birthday to you. Cheers to all the people who became adults on 9/11 2019. I think we might be getting a call from the United States of America very shortly. That would be brilliant if we can. But I remember hearing the news on the bus before I'd got home, before the days of everyone carrying a smartphone and news traveling instantly. This story was unfolding gradually, and we got on the bus, and the bus driver said, yeah, they've crashed planes into buildings in New York. And a couple of guys were saying, why is he talking about that? Who cares? And I kind of sort of jokingly said, you know what, I bet when we get home, it's the biggest story ever. And it was. We've got a call from Carol coming in. I'm just trying to ring him back. Let's see if we get it. Hello, Carol. Welcome to Lessons for Life. Thank you for calling all the way from America.
Of course, I am on my holiday, and I saw my best friend doing his YouTube channel, so I wanted to.
Oh, my brother, you're very kind. Thank you. Thank you so much. Look, I saw some pictures. Looks like you're having a great time out there with your old mates who you used to train with.
Absolutely. Yes, I've been some martial arts training. I saw my friends from my childhood.
Superb.
I'm staying up in Harlem with my friend Lewis.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
So, as an American, what does 9/11 mean to you?
Oh, it just means sacrifice. A lot of memories, a lot of lost lives, but also a lot of people coming together and showing the true New York spirit of unity and supporting.
Were you in New York at the time?
Yeah. My dad was right under the towers when they were falling down.
Wow.
And he looked up and he was like, "I'm going home."
Wow.
And then he came the next day to help with the rescue efforts.
So he
spent
saw
about
the
a month
towers
there.
collapse at free fall speed.
Yeah. Yep.
And what?
Then no, he didn't. He was out of there. He saw
Okay.
the plane hit, then he left.
Okay.
So he saw the plane hit, then he left, and then he showed up the next day to help with the rescue efforts.
So what would your dad say to people that say things like, well, there were no planes, it was a hologram, this kind of conspiracy theory?
That's bullshit. Like, they're clearly the planes hit. The planes are real. But they were basically 9/11 was a controlled demolition, and various. So basically, I think there was an article from a week ago, basically saying that the United Union of Engineers in America, it's like a professional body of engineers, they all agreed that 9/11 was a controlled demolition, the way the towers fell.
Yeah.
Plus, obviously, what happened with the planes, right? So, it could have been the planes just happened to hit, and then the demolitions were set off, or it was all planned, or you know what I mean? But basically, the way the buildings fell was due to explosives, not due to the planes hitting the towers.
But
and that's what the engineers confirmed.
If planes were intended to hit the towers, why would you need the explosion as well? Or if you had already planted
the
bombs...
planes would not, because the two planes are not strong enough to take out the planes.
So why not just have the bomb? Why wouldn't you just have a bomb then? Why do you need the planes?
Well, you need a scapegoat, right? Well, you have to blame somebody, right? So the planes were orchestrated.
But couldn't they have just said, "Oh, Al Qaeda planted the bombs," or would that not have been believable?
Well, because then you would have people investigating for bombs, right? And the U.S. Army has special type of plastics they use in bombs, so it would have been tracked back to them. I think. Interesting.
Because this is a point that George Galloway made. He said, "I'm not sure that what the truth is about 9/11, but if you were going to have some kind of conspiracy to blow up the towers, why would you need the planes as well?" But as you say, one kind of covers the other, doesn't it? You're not going to investigate for bombs if you're blaming the planes.
Yeah, any confusion, you just confuse the masses and people are blaming the planes or the bombs, but it's actually a combination of the two.
Wow, we're going deep tonight. Well, look, thank you it's great to have an American talking on the subject, especially somebody who was there, and love to all your family out in America. Give me a shout as soon as you're back in London. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate the contribution, bud.
I'll be back on the 21st, so I'll see you then.
Superb. Okay, see you then. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, we're going to get into the conspiracy, and that kind of addresses a point that was made. As I said, George Galloway, last Sunday, someone brought up these questions about engineers saying that the towers fell at free fall speed, and it would seem to be very obviously a controlled demolition. But why would you need to have a controlled demolition and a plane attack? Why would you need both? It's a bit, as he calls it, belt and braces. But maybe that is the cover-up. The plane explains away the explosion, the demolition, and there are reports of people saying they heard bombs going off. That's been very hushed up. People talk about nanothermite being possibly the explosive that was used. Let's have a look at the comments. Jen Wallace is saying we couldn't reach any of our family in New York City. It was horrible. My mum called it hysterical and called me hysterical, and I was glued to MSNBC for weeks after. Since then, I realised the power of media controlling the public. And Arsenal is the best is saying CNN, MSNBC are CIA controlled. And the Dusty Foot is saying, Jen Wallace, sorry you had to go through all that. And exactly. Yeah, the mainstream media, the mainstream narrative, they always start with what we know is, and very early we were being told this is the work of Osama bin Laden. And going back to my personal memories of the day, and when I saw the plane, the footage of the planes, didn't see the first plane land because, of course, no one did, apart from George Bush, who claimed that he did, but how could he have when it was not broadcasted? But I saw the plane crashing into the towers. I heard that they'd been hijacked. And back then, the only plane hijackings that I had heard about were Palestinian operations, the likes of the PFLP and Black September, the Munich Olympics, when a plane was hijacked by, and Layla Khalid would have been one of the fighters involved in these sort of operations. So I thought, wow, is this the Palestinians? Are the Palestinians to blame for this? And I was uncomfortable with that thought, being, as I was and still am, a Palestinian sympathizer. That coupled with the footage that was aired falsely pertaining to be, or purporting to be, of Palestinians celebrating in the street, footage of people giving out sweets, and someone wrongly translating the message as this is a sweet from Osama bin Laden, as if this is somehow being celebrated by the Palestinian people, when in fact that was found out to be archive footage shot during, I think, the original Iraq War, and the Palestinians were celebrating something else. And this was a disgusting blood libel portraying Palestinians as celebrating this atrocity. Meanwhile, the real Palestinians, the likes of Yasser Arafat, was on his way to give blood in a very symbolic show of solidarity and sympathy with the American people. And he said live on TV that his heart poured out for the victims involved in this atrocity. Jen Wallace is saying, I'll never forget Peter Jennings crying on TV and watching human beings jump from the top floors. And Darren Musso saying, it sounds crazy, your uncle driving over the bridge and seeing it. Wow. Yeah, for anyone that witnessed this event, it probably will be the sort of thing that sticks in the mind forever. But what a spin they put on it. The propaganda. And after we established that, it was definitely Osama bin Laden became the buzzword. Everyone knew the name. People were making jokes about Osama bin Laden. All of a sudden, this guy was world famous and he was public enemy number one. Having been public hero number one just a few years before that, when he was fighting the Soviets in Afghanistan. This holy warrior, the leader of the Mujahideen, was all of a sudden the devil. And everybody knew his name, and everybody knew that he was responsible. And this is what happens when an event like this occurs. We tend to reduce things down to one-word answers, sound bites. Bin Laden. Even during the Iraq War, it became Saddam. Even as awful as he was, Hitler, that one name that just seems to sum up the entire Nazi party and Nazi movement of the 1930s and 40s. There's many other evil men alongside him, Himmler, Göring, Goebbels, etc. But we just go with the soundbite, the name, and it's usually a surname. And Arsenal is the best is saying, lessons for life. Do you think people are weaponizing 9/11 to go after Muslims? Well, it was weaponized. It was described as the new Pearl Harbor, this century's Pearl Harbor, and it was used to invade some Muslim majority countries, and some Islamophobes do use it to attack Muslims, but it's kind of worn a bit thin. And I think 18 years on, since a major Islamist attack on American soil. There's not been many since. I know there was the attack in the nightclub where the perpetrator phoned up and claimed he was paying allegiance to 9/11, to ISIS, but Al-Qaeda have kind of gone a bit out of fashion. They've slipped through the net, and now they're being reincarnated and under a new name. And ISIS is the new buzzword, even though ISIS began life as Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And the reason there was Al-Qaeda in Iraq was because of the invasion of Iraq, which was because of 9/11, even though Saddam Hussein, a secular Arab nationalist who used to imprison Islamic extremists, had nothing to do with the attack. PSV Eindhoven is saying, what about the 2.3 trillion that was missing, dude? Where was it missing from, PSV? Give me a little bit more information on that and I'll reflect on it. Jen Wallace is saying Islamophobia is still very real here. That's why people love Trump. Do they? Do they love Trump because of Islamophobia? Or what about Mexican phobia? What about general racism and misogyny? And just being like Trump. Let's speak to whoever this might be. Hello, caller. Welcome to Lessons for Life. Who's this?
Oh, hi.
Welcome. Who have we got online?
Faisal from Radio.
Faisal, welcome to the air. Thank you for calling. What's your take on the events of 9/11 and all that came after it?
Well, my personal view, people focus on the two twin towers which fall down, but they miss out about the WC7. This building hasn't been hit and it fall down like controlled demolition, according to experts.
Okay.
I am not an expert. I'm an electrical engineer, and every people in that field confirm that free fall equals controlled demolition. And there is also a chemical they found when they cleaned it up, is that a nitrophite, whatever it's called, the thing that burns the metal to a high temperature.
But Building 7 came down because of office fires, right?
Well, whatever reason they got it, free fall, it was a free fall.
Yeah, I saw that on a BBC News report.
They all fall down.
And funny enough, it was reported 10 minutes before it happened, so it must be true.
Well, everything happened for a reason. For me personally, that was an inside job.
Okay.
Full stop.
Inside job. How many people would need to be in on that in order for that to be carried out?
Well, the same amount of people who managed to make believe the world that Joe Oswald killed JFK. Exactly the same thing. Or the same thing that the Vietnam War started when the boat collapsed. They accused some people who destroyed that boat, and now we find out that that boat was remote controlled.
Is this the Gulf of Tonkin? Is that the
Yes.
one? Okay.
No. So, they tell us something, but the reality we don't know. We know that after 25 years. It's like French saying, lies take the lift, but the truth take the stairs.
Interesting. But when you say they, who are these people, and how many of them are they people? Is it a club? Are they aliens? Who are we talking about?
I'm not in the know, so for me, I'm just, there is something in front of me, and the way I'm from France, by the way.
Okay, bonsoir.
And at school, they teach us to always to check out the facts. Don't believe, because they made an experiment on us in the class. We see the same movie, but with different music. And in one type of music, they tell us to describe the scenery. So we describe it. And then in the same movie, different music was played. And they asked us to describe the scenery. And it was different. And the only difference was the music. And out of that was the consequence that you have to make. You have to be aware and be careful of what you're watching and what you're saying.
Wow. So the type of music accompanying a scene can change people's perception of it.
Of course, completely. Completely.
What was the perception or the feeling in France at the time? Because Britain obviously got dragged into the Iraq War. France did not. and they were very much ridiculed by America for not getting involved with the Iraq War. They were called cowardly. French fries were renamed to freedom fries because of this disgrace of France. Was it because the French public were more skeptical, as you seem to be?
No, because the French have their own the same kind of mode operatoire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the 1989, the last Algerian election, party won, and there is something happened in Algeria back in the days, and the French Secret Service was involved, and they blame on a specific type of people, and then it was only when ex-member of that military who wrote a book about it explained everything. And the book is called, I'm not going to say it, but the book is a big book, and it's an ex-serviceman describing exactly what happened at that time with that kind of people. You know, there is a priest being killed by some people, and the wrong people have been accused. And it was all the setup of the French, what you call, the equivalent of the MI6.
Okay.
But at that time, they accused the people, local people, of doing that, but it was not them. So the French know exactly, what they were dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
What they call it, a false flag, basically.
A false flag. Look,
Yeah,
I have no doubt that there are false flag operations that have been, I could name historical false flag events that have been proven and admitted to be false flags. But the trouble is, there are real terrorist attacks as well. And sometimes you'll get people who will then dismiss every terrorist attack, be it in France or Europe or wherever, because some of them were false flag. It doesn't mean all of them are, and it can be difficult to differentiate.
Yeah, but we have to agree on the definition of what is a terrorist to start with. Yeah, that's the first definition. Every word has a meaning. Now, if we don't agree on the definition of a word, then, we can call everything terrorist. The attack happened in America with the gun. It's not called terrorist.
Yeah.
But some other part of the region of the world is called terrorist.
Well, what's your definition?
I don't create words. I was born and that word already existed.
Okay.
So, for the definition of the dictionary is when someone tries to impose through violence their politic aim or their vision of the world or their vision of how to live. How to live life. Now a lot of countries fulfill that definition without naming anyone. We have to agree on the definition of the word.
When a mass shooting happens, do you think that's an act of terrorism?
Mass shooting, well, that's murder, mass murder.
Okay.
That's mass murder, but that's a different kind of how we define the people. You just use the word terrorist, so we have to agree on the term what that definition is. If not, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, for me, it's politically motivated violence, violence with a political agenda.
Violence can be physical or it can be non-physical. Like austerity can be a form of violence. It can cost lives. It can cost lives, cutting a benefit to disabled or this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And here we go. So that's why words are very important.
Yeah.
But coming back to the WT tower, that's for me personally the inside job. You've got a recording from the firefighter hearing kind of little loud explosion. The investigation took very longer time than the Lewinsky affair with Clinton, and it cost less in money.
Yes.
The Lewinsky investigation cost more and longer in time than the 9/11 investigation.
Wow.
And in France, for example, it's forbidden to even think otherwise.
But Lewinsky went down quicker than the Twin Towers.
Pardon?
Monica Lewinsky went down quicker than the Twin Towers.
Yeah, but the investigation cost was more than the 9/11. 9/11 should be taken all the time, taking into consideration.
You'd think they'd want to investigate it properly, wouldn't you? I mean, they spent all the money invading countries afterwards. Why not spend a bit of money investigating what actually happened?
Of course, there is a lot of things happening over there that it's not on the report. Like the firefighter listening the bomb, the small picture where you've got some kind of like a controlled demolition. It's not.
Well, Faisal, it's Faisal, right?
Yeah.
If you had to put your money on it, what would you say is the truth?
The truth. Well, I don't hold the truth. I just see something, and what they are saying doesn't match.
Okay.
You know.
So you don't have an alternative theory. You're just not happy with the official line.
No. It's not the first time past history and knowing their history. It's not the first time that they resort to violence to gain their political agenda.
Yeah.
First World War and the Second World War, we all know who financed them and what was the purpose for it. And all the people are going to say about conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy. Look at the evidence. The evidence is out there. You have to look at it in a different kind of spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Don't swallow everything that people say. It's not because they say one thing that it is that. You have to check. The experts are saying it. I'm not an expert. Structural engineer are saying it. That's not possible. That can't happen. And they show picture of building burning for 24 hours, and the structure is still intact.
Yeah, they do say jet fuel does not melt steel.
That's right. And even that the standard of whatever standard in America is saying that the metal used for that time was a specific accreditation.
Mm-hmm.
So what they are saying is not possible. Physically, it's not possible. They can put any simulation they want. That's irrelevant. You've got experts. It's their field.
Mm-hmm.
Who are saying what you're saying is not correct. It's not possible.
Right.
Correct.
Some things don't add up.
Right. No, it doesn't add up. So me, it's not the first time that they do something like that to promote something else.
Faisal, thank you very much for speaking to me. I hope you'll call me again. And there's probably a lot deeper we can go into this subject, but I appreciate your call.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir.
Bye.
Bonsoir. There we go. That's Faisal. Yeah, he's right. The story doesn't add up. The official line does not add up. And I might as well I would put my cards on the table if I had an alternative theory, but I don't have one set in stone. But the question we must ask ourselves when things like this happen is, cui bono? Who benefits from such an event? And it certainly wasn't the Muslim world. If you were a jihadist who wanted to better the lot of the Muslims, would you really have launched an attack that brought America into the heart of the Arab world to invade? Now, maybe jihadists don't think like that. Maybe they long for a war. There are some people that want to bring about the end of the world. They want to bring on Armageddon, and they just want to crack on with it. But who really did benefit from 9/11? Yeah, I'll let you answer that question yourself. So, on the day of 9/11, some Middle Easterners were arrested because they were spotted with cameras taking pictures of the event, and they were from a company called Urban Moving Systems. Okay, that was the name given to this removal company. A bunch of Middle Easterners who were arrested, and they spent 71 days in jail. I think they were some of the very few people that were arrested on 9/11, and they were spotted dancing in the street when the towers were hit. And later, on a TV interview on a Middle Eastern channel, they claimed that they had been sent to document the event. Run that by you again. These individuals from Urban Moving Systems had been sent to document the event with their cameras, and they were dancing in the street, cheering and high-fiving each other. Now, how could you possibly be sent to document an event unless you had some kind of prior knowledge to said event. However, these people spent 71 days in jail and then were deported. They did not receive any further punishment than that. And let's go through some comments that have been shared by PSV Eindhoven. Please, people, check 2.3 trillion missing Rumsfeld the day before. It was missing from the Pentagon, announced by Rumsfeld the day before. Check YouTube. An imam from Trinidad who lived in New York at the time, someone broke into his house and they only took his passport. He moved from New York. Interesting. Yeah, the passport seemed to get stolen and they rock up in places. Strange but true. Has that ever happened to any of you? Have you had your passport stolen? Whenever I'm abroad and they take your passport for any reason and want to go and photocopy it, you sort of have that little panic for a moment, wondering what's happened. Arsenal is the best is off. Thank you very much for joining us. Arsenal is the best. You have a good evening too. And thank you for your contributions. Yeah, passports. I mean, passports have been copied, duplicated, and used to commit crimes abroad. In Dubai, a Hamas operative was kidnapped by people holding fake Irish passports and British also, I believe. And that was an extrajudicial kidnapping and execution, as he was not only captured but suffocated in his hotel room. So it's not just James Bond. People do have their passports stolen, their identities stolen, and then crimes committed with their name. So let's talk about Building 7 that Faisal mentioned, that was apparently brought down due to office fires. So 2 planes hit 2 buildings. Forget about this idea of holograms or whatever. Let's accept the fact that planes hit the 2 buildings. And then 3 buildings collapsed at free fall speed. One of them being Building 7, a much smaller tower, just a few blocks away from Ground Zero and Towers 1 and 2. Or you can see it on the picture. They're just it's next to the Twin Towers. This building fell at free fall speed, and the event was announced on BBC News, and the explanation was given that Building 7 has collapsed due to office fires. Now, I know the BBC are good at predicting the weather, but they must be incredible at predicting the news, because this event was broadcast and reported 10 minutes, I think even maybe 15 minutes before it actually happened. Now, not many buildings collapse due to fires. I know 2 had already collapsed at free fall speed, Towers 1 and 2. But Building 7, and Darren Musso is pointing out that it's still a big building, 50-story. Yeah, it's still a big building. Small in New York is still big elsewhere. And this building collapsed and the event was reported 15 minutes early. Now, that doesn't even make any sense. Let's put our tinfoil hat on and pretend that we've accepted the idea that there was foreknowledge. Did someone really sit down with the BBC and say, okay, so you're going to say that Building 7 has collapsed due to office fires? Whoa, not yet. Wait until we actually do it. I mean, it's just it's a crazy coincidence that really sort of muddies the water further and makes you think, well, how deep does this go? How many people are in on it? Was the BBC that became the Bush and Blair Corporation and a propaganda machine for the war in Iraq that deeply involved that they'd already been given a script to read on the day? It would seem like it. Or perhaps it's just the answer to many of life's riddles, that it was one hell of a coincidence. Let's have a read of PSV Eindhoven's comment. The best demolition guy from Holland, a real professional. Some people showed him the video of Building 7 without telling him that it was the 9/11 thing. He didn't know, and he immediately said controlled demolition. He was in shock when they told him it was 9/11. The video's in Dutch. Well, look, I think a lot of people would be in shock if you told them. So many people don't know that Building 7, a third tower, came down on 9/11 because we've just lapped up this mainstream narrative. And I think had 9/11 happened today, maybe we wouldn't have. Maybe there would have been too many people with a camera. Maybe 9/11 2001 was the last time it was possible to pull the wool over our eyes, but they certainly did, and people lapped it up. Although in my book it does say only 15% of Americans now believe they have been told the whole truth about 9/11, and of course Donald Trump promised he would reveal the truth about 9/11, but the same with his promise to put Hillary in jail. The promise was not worth a thing. And the PSV Eindhoven is saying, this is real, you can check this out yourself. Yeah, we will cross-check it, PSV Eindhoven, but certainly there have been many experts that have come out and said this looks like a controlled demolition. And for a time, I couldn't get my head around why they would have a controlled demolition and the plane hijacking, but I guess one is to cover up the other. And there's also the phone calls. There are strange recordings of phone calls made from the flights themselves, which wouldn't have been possible. Technology in those days didn't allow people to make mobile telephone calls from such altitudes, from planes flying at such speeds, but somehow people did make phone calls, and they left messages. Famously, a message from Mark Bingham calling his mother, said, "Hi, Mom, this is Mark Bingham." I mean, I don't know who calls their mum and gives their full name, but Mark Bingham did, and he explained what was going on. There are other recorded phone calls of people saying people have taken over the plane. They look Middle Eastern. And as I said, there were Middle Eastern people found dancing in the street on 9/11, and they spent 71 days in jail and then were let go, and they returned back to their Middle Eastern country of origin. But the only people that were allowed to fly on 9/11, when all flights were cancelled, and as Michael Moore points out on his documentary Fahrenheit 9/11, the only people permitted to fly out of the country were members of the Bin Laden family. Unbelievably. And this old ally of the United States, who'd certainly suddenly become public enemy number one, his family were permitted to fly out of the country on 9/11. You couldn't make it up, but certainly something doesn't add up. about what happened that day. And we haven't really touched upon what happened at the Pentagon. And there's also Flight 93 that was apparently brought down when the passengers all got together in this great heroic story and famously said the lines, "Let's roll," and they overpowered the hijackers and took control of the cockpit, and then a fight ensued and the plane was brought down, like in the film. Was it brought down? Was it shot down? Why would it not be shot down? Why would you not bring down a plane that has been hijacked when you know that several others have already hit targets in the capital and in New York? Darren Musso is saying, I flew today, and to be honest, I never put phone on flight mode. Phone will not work when plane is after a couple of minutes. No chance the phone calls are real, in my opinion. Yeah, there's something not right about those phone calls. But they exist in the sense that we have the recording. So what are they? Are they actors? Is this automatronic technology recreating someone's voice and got Mark Bingham saying, "Hi, Mum, this is Mark Bingham"? How do we explain that? Is it people making phone calls held at gunpoint, being forced to say something or to read a script? And there is one phone call where right at the very end of the message, you hear the woman utter something like, "It's a trick." She says something almost inaudible that's kind of sounds like she's saying it's a trick or it's a scam, something like that. I don't know. It runs very deep. But look, there have been false flag operations in the past. Darren Musso is saying, yeah, I heard that one. And there have been attacks carried out by non-Arabs dressed as Arabs, false flag or not. For example, when the King David Hotel was bombed in Jerusalem by the Haganah and the Zionist fighting forces, they entered the hotel dressed as Arabs. That was their cover, and from their point of view, the King David Hotel was a legitimate target because it was a military base for British soldiers with whom they were fighting at the time. But yes, non-Arabs dressed as Arabs carried out that attack. Similarly, during the Levon affair, when American targets in Egypt were attacked and the whole project was rumbled, it was again non-Arabs posing as Arabs to frame Arabs in order to further an agenda. When the USS Liberty was attacked in 1967 during the Six-Day War, it is alleged that this attack, although claimed to have been a mistake, it was certainly sustained for a very long time, and the survivors of the USS Liberty maintained that their ship was clearly identifiable as an American ship. It is claimed that this ship was attacked mistakenly, being mistaken for an Egyptian ship. But what appears to have happened was that, yet again, non-Arabs posing as Arabs or wanting to give the impression that Arab Egyptians had sunk this ship in order to bring America into the war. That's certainly an explanation that would work for the mystery that was the attack on the USS Liberty. So there are precedents for non-Arabs posing as Arabs in order to bring the might of America into a conflict. It's happened before. It may happen again. In the West Bank, there are even soldiers known as the Mustaribin. These are soldiers who, although not Arabs, make themselves look like Arabs. They infiltrate protests in the West Bank and they provoke attacks. They provoke violence. Look it up, Mustaribin. It's a well-known word. This is not conspiracy theory jargon going on now. The Mustaribin are a particular wing of the army who pose as Arabs, who wear the kufiya, who look Arab, who have Arab accents when they speak Arabic, who pose as Palestinians, who provoke attacks on soldiers, and then when that's done, the real soldiers who are not in plain clothes sweep in and help these Mustaribin soldiers to make arrests. And we got another call. Let's see who's this. Hello, caller. Welcome to Lessons for Life.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. Good to have you calling. We're talking 9/11.
What does that mean? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. I'm calling from Germany, actually.
Okay, guten Abend. Wie geht's? Willkommen. Welcome to the show.
What that means? I'm not German.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
Swedish.
Entschuldigen Sie bitte.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so basically, let's cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Okay?
Go for it.
Okay, so I believe there's bigger than 9/11 story out here. This
Okay.
is my theory, okay?
Hmm.
What if this is all a dream
Okay.
and nothing actually happened?
I
What if
used to read
life-
Word Up magazine.
Yeah, that's a song, I think.
Hmm.
What if life itself is just a blur and we are just aliens from another planet that have been sent here with sent here with I mean, what do you think about 9/11?
The bare minimum I can say about 9/11 is that
I mean,
the official line is absolutely
you
nonsense.
said that George Bush didn't do it, but
George Bush couldn't do anything. The guy can't eat a peanut without choking on it, or was it a pretzel? He's an ignoramus. He couldn't organise a 9/11. He couldn't organise an inside job in a brewery.
yeah, but if he didn't do it, then who did?
Well, if you've been watching the show, I've mentioned examples of false flag operations where non-Arabs have posed as Arabs and carried out attacks, carried out operations in order to further their goal. That's a possibility. It's possible that it was just 19 Arabs from Saudi Arabia armed with box cutters who couldn't fly a plane to save their lives, who crashed into 2 buildings, bringing down 3 of them. But even if that is true, it's absolutely insane that having suffered an attack from Saudi Arabians, we then invaded Afghanistan and killed 1 million Iraqis next door as well. So the whole thing, even the official line, makes absolutely no sense. And I'm trying to make sense of it. I'm throwing theories out there. To be honest, your theory about it being a dream is just as good, if not better, than the official theory.
Well, what about jet fuel? It doesn't melt steel beams.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So historically, if you look at buildings in the past, excluding Notre Dame, they burn and they burn and they burn and they burn, yet they don't collapse. Now, these firefighters, if you watch Loose Change documentary, the firefighters were there and they heard controlled demolition. Now, George Bush needed an excuse. It was election time. This is my theory, right? He needed to get in position where he's, quote unquote, doing it for the American people. So, boom, there you go. A big enough reason. Go to Iraq, get the oil, overthrow Saddam, overthrow whoever after that. In fact, is that the reason ISIS was birthed?
It could well be. It certainly is the cause. What's the feeling in Germany? Do people believe the official line? Are they skeptical?
In Germany, everyone's still in the Third Reich type of like mentality.
Wow.
You know, people are still getting over Hitler's actual, you know, death, because it wasn't that long ago where he passed away. So people are still in a phase.
It's still fresh in the mind. Well, how long ago did he? While we're going conspiracy theory, do you believe Hitler killed himself in 1945, or did he flee to Argentina and live for a few more years?
Well, it was Austria, was it? He was born in Austria.
He was born in Austria, and they say he killed himself in the bunker.
Well,
while he was playing golf.
This was in 1945.
That's the official story, but I'm a tinfoil hat wearer, so I love to speculate that maybe he fled to South America, like many other Nazis did. Eichmann, for example, who was later captured by Israeli soldiers or agents, Mossad, and brought back to Israel and executed in Israel for crimes committed during the Holocaust.
Well, my theory is that Hitler, when he was influenced by Robert Mugabe's strong patriotic views and his tyranny.
Okay, we were comparing Hitler with Robert Mugabe. Now, who copied who for the moustache? Who was first?
That's a tough. Okay, maybe Hitler copied him, because white people do copy people sometimes. Not that other races can't copy.
Well, it's all cultural appropriation. What's your name, my friend? Calling from Germany.
Adolf, funny enough. Adolf Schweitzer.
There's not many of those about these days. Look, thank you very much for calling me long distance from Deutschland, and they're an hour ahead, so you stayed up late as well. Much appreciated.
Okay, thank you for your time, and I wish everyone on this channel luck and prosperity, sweet joy. Keep doing your thing. I'm a huge subscriber and fan of the channel.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I watch all your videos daily. And
Thank you.
I'd love to visit you sometime and take you out for a crisp packet.
Thank you. Anytime you're in London, just drop me an email, lessonsforlife247@gmail.com. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir. Beautiful.
Au revoir.
Good night. Thank you. That's nice to get another international call. We've been around the world tonight, from America to Germany. And Abdullah YouTube is in the comments, and he's saying, I believe the terrorists were behind it, but the authorities and other foreign entities knew about it, and they didn't do much about it, or didn't want to let others know. I'm not sure. Either way, 9/11 was an inside job or whatever. It sort of is irrelevant, because America was planning to invade Afghanistan or send special troops to kill Osama bin Laden even before 9/11. Yes, and General Wesley Clark revealed that it was revealed to him that they planned to overthrow 7 countries in 5 years, and they're a little bit behind schedule with that, but certainly Afghanistan, Iraq were on the list, followed by Somalia, followed by Syria and Lebanon, and culminating with Iran. And you can see they're behind schedule on this project, but that is definitely the direction of travel. All of this is pointing towards Iran. And it's a big shame that the whole divide and conquer, your enemy's enemy is my friend sort of solution has happened. And Abdullah is mentioning, Lesson for Life, did you watch a documentary called Holocaust, The Revenge Plot? It's about Holocaust survivors who plan to take revenge on the German people. No, I didn't see that, and that's interesting. And I think Germany as a country, as a nation, understandably lives with this guilt of the Holocaust, and they've never really been able to live it down, and they completely demilitarized themselves. They were forbidden from forming an army, likewise Japan, and I think they are riddled with guilt for what their country did. But let's not forget, it wasn't just the Germans or German people who carried out the Holocaust. I mean, I've just come back from Ukraine, and the atrocities that were committed against Jewish people and others in that part of the world are absolutely horrendous also. And Abdullah is mentioning that they wanted to take revenge by poisoning the water system. And Let's Unite Upon Hack is questioning our caller from Germany. I bet this guy's not even from Germany. He just wants to hide his identity. Well, if you can't bury the truth or twist the facts on a day like 9/11, well, when can you? What was he really from Germany? I don't know. But I always remember and I mentioned it earlier, the Munich Olympics in Germany, obviously, in 1972, where Black September kidnapped members of the Israeli Olympic team and held them hostage and tried to barter exchanges for prisoners held in Israel. And it was a huge embarrassment for the German nation to have allowed this attack to happen to Jewish victims. And even, I think, American Jewish swimmer Mark Spitz had to escape from the Olympics because he was under threat. So the Germans have lived with this ghost of the Holocaust, and the Holocaust has been politicized. I'm not sure if it's up here. Oh, look, here we go. 1 minute. Norman Finkelstein, with his book Beyond Chutzpah, on the misuse of anti-Semitism and the abuse of history. Very good book, which explains, I'll just read a little bit of the blurb on the back, a brilliantly illuminating study of the lengths to which some American Jews will go to present Israel in a favourable light. On display are all the sterling qualities for which Finkelstein has become famous. So the Holocaust has been used to portray Israel positively. The worst crime of the 20th century, used to justify land grabbing, ethnic cleansing. We saw today that Netanyahu has announced that he would like to annex much of the West Bank, the entirety of the Jordan Valley, land that under international law is illegally occupied and designated to form part of a future Palestinian state. But the two-state solution is dead in the water because of the likes of him. And it is the tragedy, and Norman Finkelstein explains how this horrific crime has been used to justify other crimes. Now, that doesn't mean that the Holocaust was okay or justified in any way. It's the exact opposite. And as I say, it's the worst crime of the 20th century. But we mustn't use it to justify other crimes. And And Abdullah is saying, some nations or segments of a nation collaborated with the Nazis against the Jews. Because of that, till this day, the Jews who suffered from such nations get restitution and reparation from these nations. Yeah, I mean, look, certainly we do need to have restitution for these crimes, but the people who have paid the biggest crime who have paid the biggest price are the Palestinian people who were not responsible for the Holocaust. And Food Bottom is saying beardy muck, beard face. I guess he's acknowledging the fact that I have facial hair. Thank you for that. So yeah, it has been a interesting evening. I want to thank everybody who got in touch, calls from Germany, whether they were real or fake. This is a subject we can go back into. We've got a phone call. Let's see who this is. Hello, welcome.
Hi, Julian. It's Mac. I spoke to you before.
Oh, well, who is it?
Mac.
Persian
guy.
Okay, welcome. Welcome back to Lessons for Life. Thank you for calling.
Hi. I just wanted to ask you. I mean, obviously, you're talking about the 9/11 and the Palestinians.
Mm.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm from a Muslim, anyway. Just thinking, did the Prophet not teach the Muslims? Obviously, the Qibla is like Saudi. Like, that's like non-Muslims aren't allowed in Saudi Arabia. Do you get the ideology behind that?
Non-Muslims aren't allowed in Saudi Arabia?
Basically, yeah.
Are you sure?
If you're non-Muslim, well, if you're not in Saudi Arabia, Mecca, Medina,
okay,
specific, shall I say?
Yeah.
Okay.
So non-Muslim can't enter Mecca. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Mm.
So now that's okay. In Arabic or Farsi, we say mantiq or amal. Okay, there's a mantiq behind that amal. Now, amal meaning deed, action. Okay. Action. Mantiq means there's a logic and an action behind that logic behind that action.
Okay.
The reason why I dropped these lines is because I've been to Saudi. There's a masjid called Masjid Qiblatain.
Of the two, because the first Qibla was originally Jerusalem, right?
Exactly. So this indicates by that mantiq al-amal, if we have aql, then we can understand that in action, Rasulullah saying, leave Jerusalem. Because the way I see it as a Persian, I'm not going to lie, Cyrus the Great, he was Zoroastrian, he freed it from the Babylons and let them go back to their lands. So now, the way I see it, all this money been pumped from Iranian regime, all the Muslim regimes, whatever. Couldn't they buy some sort of parts of Saudi and make that? Obviously, that's an all-out Muslim country meant to be. And Mecca, Medina are anyway. So at the end of the day, if the next genocide does happen, they do need a land. The Israelites. I mean, at the end of the day, it does come to that fact. So if we look at history and use our logic, don't you think that the action of Rasulullah is showing us that leave that land and our Qibla has changed? That's what we should be concentrating on, essentially. And if any Palestinians or whatever have historical, obviously, ancestry there, you know what? You're going to give it up and go to the country that accepts you, only your type, and that's Muslims. And why not, instead of pump the money into war against the Jews, why not make a civilization in parts of the deserts in Arabia? Make that strictly Muslim too. Do
you really think that because of the two Qiblas and the fact that Muslims don't pray towards Jerusalem anymore, that means that Muslims living in that vicinity should leave?
I'm not saying we should ignore that. My point is that the Rasulullah, if the masjid in the Qiblatain is showing us with the amal, that our main concentration should be where the Kaaba is now. That is the ideology behind the action, no?
And this makes you accept the idea that Israel might annex parts of the West Bank and the Jordan Valley?
Well, I'm going to sound a bit cruel for saying this.
That's all right.
Put it this way, yeah. The Israelis need a land. That's one. That's a given, because the way I see it, Cyrus the Great allowed them to go back to there. So
but you're conflating the Israelis with the Israelites. There were no Israelis until 1948.
I know, the Zionist movement is different to the Israelites. I know you got some Jews that are protesting about the Zionist movement against it in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm completely aware of all of these things. But I'm just saying that overall, if the genocide does occur, they need a land. They need
which genocide?
Well, Auschwitz or wherever.
Okay, if there's another Holocaust, God forbid.
Yeah, well, obviously, this is where I'm just saying, like everything, there's a Rasulullah. If they want to follow the Sunnis, the Sunnah, well, that's the Sunnah. That's the Amal that Rasulullah changed his attention from Jerusalem to Kaaba. That is what we should focus ourselves on, realistically. So at the end of the day, I know we do have the same heritage as the Jews. I mean, at the end of the day, looking back at it, it's Isaac and Ishmael. They're brothers.
Isn't the problem that we're answering political questions with religious answers? I mean, 10% of Palestinians historically are Christian. This is not a Muslim-Jewish thing. Many Palestinians are secular.
Yeah, but if you go bloodlines, if you follow the bloodlines, it's going to go back to the same Abrahamic bloodline, and Ishmael, which is where the Arabs come from, and then Isaac is where the Jacob and obviously the Israelites and Jews come. But they're cousins, they're second cousins in reality. Do you not see that?
So shouldn't they all be able to live together? Why do we need a country for the Jews and a country for the Muslims?
Going back to the West Bank talk, bombing the West Bank, let me explain something to you.
Go ahead.
I don't agree with people killing people. That's just, it shouldn't be done. If we can, this is what I'm saying, if we can avoid that. Now, if I was to have a rat infestation in my house, I'm not going to, like, kiss the rat with I'm going to torture it, I'm going to kill it, I'm going to try and set traps and sort of, like, that's what it's like for the Israeli mind. These Palestinians are like rats. That's the way they see it. So they're going to be harsh about bombing and all sorts. You're going to see logos where a pregnant woman wearing hijab and a baby, 1 shot, 2 kills kind of thing. You're going to see these logos and slogans. But you know what? It's the mentality of, at the end of the day, if you're in your own house and you want to get rid of rats, how are you going to go about it? You're not going to be nice to the Market, are you?
Well, this is the trouble. The Israeli settlers are not in their own house. They're in someone else's house.
I'm not being politically correct. I'm just trying to get to the point of the crux of the point, and that's the ideology. Now, as what I'm saying is, Muslims, at the end of the day, if Jews see Muslims in that manner, then you know what? Leave that land, go to your holy land. That's all I'm saying. All this money that's been pumped into Palestine to fight. I mean, at the end of the day, they can't get no medics or food or anything in or out. So why not just move those people? Realistically, like, open up as a civilization parts of that desert called the third holy city of Saudi. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, it just, for me, I mean, if they don't seem to get along, I mean, obviously, but there is one place Arabs can always say that they have to themselves, but where can the Jews say that they have? Do you see what I mean?
I see exactly what you mean, and you said it very well. I don't think it's as simple as Arabs and Jews, because the people are from Haifa are the people from Haifa, whether they're Arab, Jew, or whatever, and they will always want to go back to their home. And the Palestinian people have refused to become a forgotten people like the Native Americans.
Let me put it to you another way. Okay? They're cousins. I've said to you they're cousins, the Arabs and we're going to look at a famous historical, like in all 3 religions, they believe in Yusuf and his 11 brothers. What did Yusuf have? That just shows what brothers can do amongst brothers. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
That Yusuf's story is one of the best stories in the Quran and the Bible, is because from that we learn a lot. And that's a simple brother. If a brother can't get along with a brother, do you see what I mean?
Cain and Abel.
Let alone cousins, whether or the slightly different nation ones, Israeli, but they're cousins. At the end of the day, we're all human, like brotherly from Adam and Eve anyway. But that's the point I just wanted to make. Is all these people talking? I mean, who actually? I mean, besides the Jews, who actually gives any right to the Jews? I mean, it's not really fair on them, is it?
The Jews.
I mean, who really supports them? They've always been like called bad things, and I just don't see like I'm anti-hate. I don't appreciate hate anyway.
Yeah, look, and I'm not about demonizing anybody, and I think even terms thrown around like the Jews, it's misleading because it's like the Muslims did 9/11 or the whoever did 9/11. These are individuals, and individuals are responsible for their own actions, and Jewish people at large are not responsible for what the so-called Jewish state does. And that's one of my objections to what is happening, is that it's being done in the name of a people who are not to blame, and it will lead to hatred and anti-Semitism. And as Professor Norman Finkelstein says, that anti-Semitism will then be weaponized to further the agenda.
That is. But I mean, essentially, I just thought I'll weigh in and give.
Much appreciated. I really appreciate. Can I just sort of throw a few things at you?
Sure.
Would you describe yourself as a Persian nationalist?
Persian nationalist? What do you mean?
Are you very sort of patriotic about the fact that you're Persian? And do you perhaps see Arabs as kind of invaders?
The word paradise in etymology shows us that it was derived from the Persians, the word paradise. So
really? Is that right? I never knew that.
Historically, that. Huh?
I never knew that. Paradise comes from Parsi or Persian.
Yeah, it originated from the Latin, where the Latins used to call the closed garden of Persia paradisios or paradis.
Wow.
And it was derived from, so etymology. So for me, being Persian is all historical for me. Because living in the UK, I've got no Persian links whatsoever to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean? My father's buried here, and my brother's buried here. So now I see as this country being my motherland, realistically, where you bury your father or mother, that becomes, in my eyes, your motherland.
Sure.
Even though my ancestry may lead to Iran, but I see myself more British than I do Iranian. Does that make sense?
I appreciate that. Now, the reason I throw it out there is because there is a perception, and I've had conversations with Palestinians in Palestine when I've kind of said to them, what about Iran? Aren't they helping you? Look, they're standing up to America. They're standing up to Israel when no one else is. And some sectarian-minded Palestinians, I would say, are suspicious of Iran, regardless of whatever help they might give them or support. And they say, look, these people are farce, as they call them, and they're secretly against us.
Yeah, I mean, Iranians. To be honest with you,
because of stories like Cyrus, as you said, Cyrus the Great.
I'll tell you a bit more about.
Yeah, go
on. My dad was famous. I can. If I could tell you, Iranian thing is called Gugush, which is the ultimate Iranian. Any Iranian you drop the name. I got films on YouTube with my dad, directing films with her in it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
My dad was if all the revolution. My dad was living at large in the cinema industry and competing with Hollywood, and there's films on YouTube out there for him. So for me, I come from a background of that sort of ideology. Now, however, my mum, she is a great great grandmother is Fatima Zahra alayhi salam.
Okay.
So from that aspect, she's.
So you're Sayyid as well as Iranian nobility.
No, Mirza. Sayyid is only through dad.
Oh, sorry. So Mirza.
Mirza. So
Amirzadeh, born to be prince.
Yeah, I'm a Mirza, so I'm not exactly full Sayyid. So it basically means I'm Sayyid, but my kids can't be.
Interesting.
Okay?
Yeah.
So this is how the ideology works. So for me, I mean, I grew up in a country where I had Jewish friends, I had all types of different cultures, and I've learned quite a lot from other cultures. And Iranians, believe it or not, like we have a lot of Jews in Iran.
Yes.
Do you not know this?
But I believe Asfahan is very rich in Jewish heritage.
Prominent Jewish background. Yeah, I mean, so even Zoroastrianism, I mean, if you follow the ideology where the good God and bad God came from, was from Zoroaster himself, Ahura Mazda. I don't know if you know about Zoroastrianism. No.
Yes, a little bit, that it's dualism, as in a good and a bad equally.
God, the ideology came from Zoroaster, and that was the person that bought it. Yeah. Now, for Cyrus the Great, he was mentioned in the Bible. What religion was he? Zoroastrian.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
As would have been the Magi or the three wise men who came from the east following the star.
I mean, if you look at the motto, literally the Zoroastrian motto it literally breaks down to clean thought, clean speech, and clean act.
Mm-hmm.
So your actions and all of these have. So it starts off with you have to think clean, clean thoughts, and then you speak with polite, and you no profanity or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you act on like civil manner without harming or. You see what I'm upsetting?
Yeah, look, the limited knowledge I have of Zoroastrianism is that it's a beautiful religion, an amazing civilization that outlawed slavery long before anyone else in the world had thought about doing so.
People are deprived from this information. If they really follow, and they can say the three mottos of Zoroaster, and they'll see it's clean thought, clean talk, and clean action, or pure thought, pure talk, and pure action. That is the main motto. And if that's not the basic motto for all religions, so I don't know what else would be.
And you're a Mirza, right? So you're descended from the Prophet on one side. Your ancestors obviously were converted from.
My dad was Sunni. My dad was Sunni, converted to Shia.
Really? Was he from Baluchistan or somewhere like, or Kurdish?
No. He was from Mashhad. He was
okay. Well, of course, the majority of Iran was Sunni until fairly recently, historically, and.
No, Sassafid as well. If you follow the history of Sassafid, it was Sassafid and if you know Abu Lolo, and if you like even the events of Karbala and Mukhtar, if you follow, another thing that I don't get is people say they love the Rasulullah, whether it be Sunni or Shia. I don't want to put labels to it, but how can you not like the grandson? Do you see what I'm saying? Or accept the grandson? It just baffles me, this logic. And another thing is, if the Rasulullah can trust a daughter, I mean, nowadays we consider daughter something you can't just trust any old person. So if he was willing to trust it with Ali, was he? Because we say you have qayra, you have this sort of kind of over your mother, your sister, and your wife. You see what I'm saying? And your daughter.
Jealousy of.
Not jealousy, but you have you make sure that they're treated with the utmost respect.
Okay, and the dayuth would be someone who doesn't have that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So basically, if Rasulullah had so much trust with Ali to trust his daughter's honor, you think that the same jealousy, possessiveness that he would be about his religion being perfect, do you not think he could have trusted his religion just as equally? This is, again, without hadith, without going... This is just, again, looking at the amal and using the mantiq.
Well, it's interesting points, but where does this leave your Zoroastrianism? Do you believe it was a divinely revealed religion from before?
Of course, I mean, there's 100 they say 1,020 something prophets in the Quran, and some of them mention, some of them not.
Sure, I mean, absolutely. Because I do think people, the younger generation that are disaffected with Islam in Iran because of the regime and having spent time there a couple of years ago.
I'm full of aware of their Zoroastrianism.
But people are harking back to Zoroastrianism affectionately because they're disaffected with what the religion has become.
That you have people coming out, scholars, saying if you do follow your Zoroastrianism ways, you would realize that the first thing that the Zoroastrians did was cover up their wives. They wear saris that are twice as big as like the chador. You know what a chador is?
Yeah. The veil, the cover.
Yeah, the long veil.
Yeah.
So basically, like with the Zoroastrians, even Mary, she dressed so modestly. Even in Christianity, you see Mary always wearing a kind of a scarf, and the nuns. It's just natural. It's like when you have diamond, you don't want it out in the show. You just want to hide that precious thing that you have. Is it not?
Sure. And I do. Yeah, and I think the Romans, the burqa was practiced in the Roman Empire before Islam and carried on during Christianity. The nuns cover their hair. Christians eventually did away with it, and Muslims kept it going. Whether that's from the book or from culture, I don't know.
No, it is kingship. If you the funny thing is, they say again. I've been trying to follow to see if there's any truth in it. They say because of the marriages, the Spanish, like they say, the Queen is Sayyid as well. She's
apparently so.
But then again, they because of the body they found of Edward, I think it was Richard, the third, that didn't match the DNA to the Queen's, apparently.
Yeah.
Did you know about that?
Well, I heard that the Queen was arguably Sayyid, and I'm not surprised. I mean, look, the bloodlines are all interlinked, and if you read the Da Vinci Code, our Queen is related to Jesus, so it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But it is very interesting.
Believe it or not, it's a small world, like six degrees of separation from anyone. That's what I'm saying. We probably know each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you go back far enough, if you think about it, if you've got 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8, 16, 32, keep doubling it up. You don't have to go back many generations before you've got millions of ancestors. So we are all interlinked at some point. Look, Mac, thank you very much for getting in touch with me. You've shed a light on a lot of very interesting subjects.
I hope to catch up with you.
Yeah, please. Call anytime I go live. I'm going to try and get in the habit of putting this number up. This will be the number, so save it and do get in touch again.
One more thing I want to say.
Yeah, go on.
As a Persian, we always have to say. I mean, if I was to advise someone if they want to learn Arabic, I'd say learn Farsi if you're Farsi, and then because they're the same anyway. And once you learn, there's no point in learning. You're not learning your mother language and then learning a third language. You see what I mean? So
sure.
In my eyes, I mean, reading the Quran is really important, obviously, but at the end of the day, if you can, Imam Ali said, if you can speak 3 languages, you're like 3 different people.
Yeah.
So the more languages you speak, the more like interpretation of other cultures that you get and gain, and you'll be more knowledgeable and have more understanding in other cultures.
Definitely. And try and have bilingual children if you can.
I will do. Take care. Thanks for your time.
Take care, my friend. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good office. That's Mac. That's great to hear from Mac. And I love the interaction, and that's originally what I wanted to do on YouTube, is take live calls. Abdullah, YouTube saying, Lesson for Life didn't know you were so pro-Palestinian. And he mentions, they say the Queen had Muslim ancestry. Lol, is that actually true? I believe it is. And Abdullah is also saying he will make sure that his children are bilingual. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great gift to give a child, to bring them up speaking more than one language, if you can. Look, ladies and gentlemen, on the 90-minute mark on 9/11, this has been Lessons for Life. I hope you will do it again. Please share the channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Please share the link after it's up. But most of all, keep tuning in. And if you can, I'm gonna make the phone number a regular thing, and we'll get lots of interaction and discussion. Thank you, Abdullah. Much appreciated, my friend. This has been Lessons for Life. We'll do it all again soon. Different time, different place. We were here. We're gone. Laters.